Okay, let's dive into one of the most audacious heists in American history. It's a story that seriously feels like it was ripped straight out of a Hollywood script. You got a massive prize, a flawless plan, and then a brutal, brutal downfall. But this wasn't a movie. This was real life, playing out on the streets of New York. You know, back in the 1970s, this was basically the golden rule for any crew that wanted to be taken seriously. The airport wasn't just a place for planes, it was a flowing river of cash from all over the world. And in 1978, one particular spot at JFK was the target everyone was dreaming about. All right, so let's set the scene. We're talking about the heart of the operation, a place just stuffed with untraceable money, and it's all supposedly protected by top-of-the-line security. Picture this. It's 3 o'clock in the morning at JFK. The entire city is asleep, but a small, very determined crew is moving in the shadows. They have figured out the exact moment when the target is most vulnerable, and they're ready to make the score of a lifetime. Now, this wasn't just some storage room. No, the Lufthansa cargo vault was the last stop for millions upon millions of dollars in untraceable currency and gems. It was, without a doubt, the ultimate prize. So let's talk about that prize, because the number is just staggering. Nearly $6 million in 1978. To give you some perspective, that's the equivalent of over 25 million bucks today. Just an absolutely life-changing amount of money, all for a single night's work. So, you have to be asking, how in the world did they do it? How does a small crew of guys just walk into a place as secure as JFK and walk out with millions? Well, this was no simple smash and grab, not at all. The plan needed this perfect mix of insider knowledge, criminal connections to fence the goods, and honestly, just pure uncut audacity to even think you could pull it off. And their plan, it was just beautiful in its simplicity. Just 3 basic steps. Get in, control the situation, and then just disappear. And they pulled it off without a single mistake. It was like clockwork. I mean, just try to imagine the scene. No alarms went off, no shots were fired. They just walked in, took all that money, and drove off like it was just another Tuesday night in Queens. It's absolutely incredible. At that point, right then and there, they were legends. They had actually done what every criminal crew dreams about, the perfect crime. They were rich, they were free, and nobody had any idea who they were. But this is where the whole story takes a very sharp, very dark turn. See, a score this big, with that much untraceable cash floating around, well, it creates its own kind of gravity. And a secret thought big rarely stays quiet for long. And here's the tragic part. The very thing that brought this crew together in the first place, that promise of a life-changing score, that was going to be the exact same thing that tore them all apart. What's so fascinating is that their downfall didn't come from the cops. It wasn't some brilliant detective who cracked the case. Nope. The whole thing imploded from the inside. There's a real tragic irony here. That same focus and intelligence that let them pull off this perfect plan, it was completely wiped out by the most basic, destructive human emotions. Their greatest strengths became their biggest weaknesses. So that professional silence that had protected the heist was suddenly replaced by a much, much more sinister kind of silence. The silence of bodies turning up all over the city as the crew started turning on each other for a bigger piece of the pie. So what in the world happened to that historic haul of cash? And what's the final legacy of the Lufthansa heist? A crime that was somehow both absolutely perfect and perfectly doomed from the start. For more than 40 years, investigators, journalists, even treasure hunters have been totally obsessed with this one single question. Where did all that money go? The honest truth is, nobody really knows for sure. I mean, despite decades of theories and searches, the huge majority of the cash and the jewels, they just vanished. Poof, gone without a trace. Okay, so the money's gone. But what about the truth of what went down? The full story of the arguments, the betrayals, all the violence that just ripped this crew apart? And that's the chilling end to this whole story. The only people who knew the entire truth, the ones who could answer all the questions, they were silenced. They took the secrets of the heist with them to the grave. This really is the ultimate takeaway, isn't it? In the end, the biggest threat to their success Wasn't the law, it wasn't the FBI, it wasn't some rival gang. The threat came from inside the house. It was themselves. It leaves us with this really provocative question, one that goes way beyond the world of crime. In any big, high-stakes project, what's the real risk? A flawed plan, or the flawed human beings trying to carry it out? Because, you can map out every single possibility, but you can never, ever fully account for the wild card that is human nature.